Cameron Chrissy was captured on camera wearing heels and a sweater in a hotel, while Jim Jones was not only deceived but also televised. One minute he was seated in court like a king. Jim is still in the room with someone else, so let him stay. Stupid. Have you ever seen a man's heart leave his body? Jim didn't blink or breathe. Instead, he just stared at the TV as though Cameron grinned as though he had been waiting for 10 years, and the courtroom was silent during his burial. This wasn't an accident. It was a hit. And Mama Jones was enthralled. Passionate performance, and Chrissy realized the camera was recording, so we now wonder how many more recordings Cam has, if this was a long-term scam or love, and how to rebuild. When everything went witness your life fall apart in 4K, then buckle up because Jim Jones won't return. It started with a USB and ended with Jim Jones slumped in a courtroom chair, his hands shaking and his soul quivering halfway out. The clip was shot as if someone had expected it to end up in court at 9:13 p.m. But it wasn't blurry, so perhaps it was her moment. It was also clear and time-stamped. Outside the Marin Hotel in Soho, I'm pulling a sweater over her head as the city looks on from side to side as she breathes. And the man who answered the Reggie was in the suite, not Jim. Fans started whispering about the name Chrissy a few months ago, when he was linked to a hush jail and claimed to be only a friend, but this movie wasn't. When Cameron Jim straightened up straighter and gave the USB to the court clerk, the atmosphere shifted. The room grew colder, and he felt as though friendship had been completely betrayed in HD. He already knew something deep inside, but seeing and knowing are two different things. Chrissy entered the hotel room, turned to face the hallway, and said into her phone, "Jim." The courtroom laughed up and Cam leaned back in his chair as though he had been waiting 10 years for karma to pay the check, and Jim sat like his bones. He still believes I'm at my relatives. Chrissy stayed still in the courtroom while he dissolved, without speaking or exploding, until finally he breathed suddenly and fell, with one arm dangling from the chair and one hand on his breast. Cam did not flinch, blink, or move if she was seeing a scene she had seen 100 times before. And that was only the first 37 seconds of the video, because what happened next was when the ride or die scenario and lies that were created for reality TV came to an end, the film cut to a room with 2 glasses of wine and a playlist that was slowly playing on the speaker. "This is where I breathe. I don't feel anything with you. I feel like I'm suffocating in someone else's life," Chrissy adds in a low, sexy giggle. That statement stung like a rocket because, according to sources, Jim named Chrissy his on 3 different shows just last year. Now he's hearing her say that on the first day of Oxygen Chrissy, she felt dead inside of him. Chrissy didn't anticipate Cameron ending up with the tape, but they were aware that the flat belonged to Reggie's friend, who frequently takes stuff for safekeeping. The method by which they obtained it is still unknown. Whatever happened, Cameron ended up with the one piece of evidence no one thought existed, and it wasn't Cam. Some say Cam, while others say Reggie lost it after Chrissy abandoned him last. Month court documents showed that Cam submitted the USB as part of a defamation counterclaim lawsuit against Jim, stating that Jim was the subject of the scandal, attempted to damage his reputation during a VH1 production conference in 2022. But Cam didn't just serve it cold. He delivered it smack in the middle of a conflict or dispute that wasn't about the court but rather about retaliation. Yes, Mama Jones was in court when Jim hit the floor, and she stood up so fast that security thought she was going to attack Chrissy. "You lied to my son, Chrissy." She sobbed before being led outside, and TMZ caught her pacing the sidewalk while yelling into her phone. "This is why I never trusted that woman. I warned Jim right away that she would ruin him in the meantime." While EMTs assessed Jim's vitals and determined that he had not experienced a cardiac episode, but rather a trauma-induced collapse, the judge had to halt the trial for an entire hour indoors. Oh, it exploded in. Within 20 minutes following the revelation, the Music Seconds Chrissy Hotel clip in which Cameron disclosed the name Jones Fall was trending on cruel memes that included Jim's face on a mattress with the words, "My brother was folded like a sheet." Chrissy departed and Cameron, grinning like Thanos, clutching the last eternity. But this was more than just a Twitter argument. The DIA halted the trial and called the judge aside when the court reconvened, and the whole 4 minutes of tape were shown since the clip allegedly showed plausible. In addition to evidence of adultery, the court was already looking into Chrissy for a closed charity fraud case, and she mentions in the hotel movie that Reggie helped me. I told them that was a contribution, so clear up that mess. Translation, there could be more charges. And what Cam wasn't done with the federal case because when the court called a break, he stood up and looked directly at Jim saying, "I told you that." What started as a reality TV heartbreak has now become a possibility. I just provided you what you needed to recover. She wasn't faithful. Jim just stared ahead as though the entire world had stopped moving and responding. According to a courtroom witness seated 3 rows behind her, Chrissy approached her lawyer and mumbled, "Tell the judge I was drunk." That film is out of context. It was a 4K multi-angle video with audio, but we're only beginning because when the court reconvenes next week, Cam's legal team stated they will play 2 more tapes and a terrible voicemail that Chrissy left for Mama Scott. If even half of what was said during that call is true, Jim Jones won't be the only loser. The entire VH1 franchise would burn to the ground, and no one was ready for what came next because, as everyone was catching their breath after watching the hotel tape, Cameron's lawyers stood up and yelled 7 words that cut the judge off in the middle of his sentence. We have more footage, and you could hear the audience grumble as it spread like a tsunami of suspicion, turning Chrissy pale. The judge leaned forward and asked Cam's attorney for explanation, and Jim did not even look up, so Mama Jones had to be forcibly restrained from returning to the courtroom. The clerk played the message that Ms. Lampin had left on Mama Scott Young's phone 3 weeks before to the recording of the infidelity scandal, which was set to become the franchise's climax. Within 10 seconds, Christy's voice was crystal clear. "Mona, I told you that if Jim discovers that the entire season has been ruined, Cam won't be able to know either, so he'll use it. I need you to take care of that." Reggie claimed that the room footage had been erased, handled the tape, told Mona to put it away, and declared the season over. The court stopped the recording because it was a smoking gun inside a nuclear power plant, and Chrissy's attorney out in a frenzied protest, but it was too late. Kay had heard enough and was no longer even grinning. He was hooked since the conversation showed that Chrissy had cheated. Not only that she expecting to be found, she tried to remove it with top-level backing, implying a cover-up that suggested manipulation and maybe interfering with an existing investigation. Even the nanny appeared rattled at this point. Jim finally lifted his head and stared at Chrissy with empty eyes, as though he had forgotten about her. He then allowed the woman he had bought rings for saw over on the second shot, which wasn't from the hotel but rather from inside a trailer on the set of Love and Hip Hop New York, started when red carpets clashed and producers defended nothing at all. The footage, which was originally made public months ago by an unidentified crew member, depicts Chrissy talking to Yan Dandy behind the scenes during what should have been a restful day. But there was nothing. Chrissy casually responded to this conversation by saying, "I am not. I know Jim is faithful, but devotion does not cure boredom. Reggie gives me a sense of purpose. Additionally, Mona is you're playing with fire, dude. You know Cam despises Yandi and you get caught. This isn't just a dispute. It's a battle." And the video had a significant influence because the audience was no longer just witnessing adultery. They were witnessing the whole Chrissy and Jim relationship, which was a purposeful brand rather than a genuine friendship. What's more, it revealed Mona because if producers knew about this months earlier, but they nevertheless created the engagement special and promoted it. Other than the everlasting love angle, they had fabricated everything by now, and social media was in full swing. Breakdown with followers and blogs burning, Chrissy's name trending alongside liability sit-up queen and Judas in Love Towns, and Mama. Jones finally managed to get past security and rush into the waiting and yelling in the hallway outside the tennis court. "That woman destroyed my son's life. She is a snake, and I want VH1 to burn." Her security tried to stop her, but the one TikTok user even spliced the hotel footage with Mama Jones' Diet Tribe and titled it, "When Your Mom Was Right the Entire Time." The damage was done as the video became viral in a matter of minutes. However, after hearing the audio in the second tape, the lawyer reappeared in court with a written email, a screenshot, and a paper trail, which made the situation more gloomy. "This is an email sent from Chrissy's account requesting footage deletion from a private server," the judge said to them. "Associated with Mom Scott's." The judge read, "I received an email," and the chamber became silent once more. Chrissy allegedly scribbled, "I if that comes out," as her hands began to tremble. "Neither Jim nor the program will get better. Tell Reggie to keep his mouth shut." Since this was manipulation, not just cheating. A media hit Jim appeared, frightened, and asked Chrissy a single question. "Is this real?" Chrissy's lips quirked, but she only glanced down, saying that silence spoke more than words. Perhaps because there could have been something left if she had said yes, but when she remained silent, Cameron did not recoil since he had already warned that this wasn't only retaliation. The reason the judge stopped the surgical deconstruction hooray procedures again was not chaos, but rather the sudden desire of VH1's legal team to address the court, and the network was now involved in its a man in a gray suit who is poring through his collar serves as the spokesperson. He continued, "We believe that some of this material was obtained illegally and that its distribution may breach an existing contract." Conditions of secrecy. Translation. They were concerned since Cam exposed producer deceit, blew up their golden pairing, and showed that "Did you try to tamper with this court's investigation via?" the judge said, staring straight at Chrissy, despite the fact that the entire love story was a ticking time bomb. Suppression or misdirection of the media? Chrissy's voice trembled as she stammered, "I didn't mean for it to," when her lawyer protested. And the court continued and go this far. "I was just afraid of losing Jim, of being exposed, of witnessing the deception come to light too late." Because the court had one more surprise in store. The revelation of Reggie's text log and Cam's. Reggie wrote to a friend after Team Supreme constructed a burner phone saying, "She played me too. Leave him now. I'm the villain and Cam got the K. Drop. I should have dumped the rest of the tapes." She pleaded with me not to, saying that there were more. At the end of the day, Jim left the courthouse looking like a ghost, with no Chrissy at his side, no Mona, and no security, just him and the weight of a love that was never betrayed and that the whole world witnessed live outdoors. Later, as reporter questioned Cam if he thought Jim deserved this. Cam looked into the camera and replied, "No, but it's not always the truth that breaks people." He then left since there is only one person left in this game of love, dedication, and cameras. Courtroom. Undefeated, and the worst part isn't even over yet. The next morning, the movie had already impacted every American viewing. The slowed down, altered, and combined segments were combined with sad music and changed into tools more quickly than Chrissy could understand. And Jim Jones's look of betrayal, which is frozen, has come to represent not only suffering but shame. And despite the fact that supporters were divided on the internet, it was evident that no one was still accepting the misunderstanding point of view. This was a whole organization, not a bad rumor. Disclosed tweets and interviews from earlier seasons, rewatching the love story with fresh eyes, and seeing the warning signs in the HD1 recording that was leaked, in which Mama Jones warned Chrissy Face, "You love cameras more than you love my son." Even if the slogan was now printed on t-shirts, the court wasn't finished since even though the emotional grief was loud, but the legal nightmare was louder. After Cameron's legal team filed an emergency request, VH1's private correspondents were abruptly subpoenaed. Why? Because Reggie the man? Yes, Reggie. It paved the way for a significant fraud probe when Chrissy slipped away with us to work on post-production. And guess who approved the video edits for Chrissy and Jim's spin-off? In order to safeguard a brand that is not only sleazy, producers altered the story, concealed real turmoil, and altered the picture. If it comes to contracts that increase money or are false, it is civil fraud. Mona Scott Young unfollowing Chrissy mid-herring caused a momentary breakdown in the production's representation of the cast members and sponsors to start pulling out. You know it's bad when Mona abandons the script, but here's when things got out of control. Jim Jones's attorney filed a request to sue Chrissy for financial sabotage and mental distress. Jim Jones did this both on and off television. Everything was now officially turning against her. And the record was extensive and included Jim's most damningly unreleased video, canceled appearances, and lost brand relationships. Filming video for a Netflix documentary series that will never air because of the issue is reported to have cost $23 million, not considering the subsequent events because of the abrupt. According to an exclusive with a gossip website, Chrissy always had a fallback plan, and her own ex, Marcus, who was allegedly someone from her past, showed up. Jim was never the aim. He was the publicity. He even made voicemails and texts public. Chrissy reportedly stated, "Jim's career is cute, but I'm trying to build mine." Chrissy's comments caused online combustion bloggers to go crazy. When the court was evaluating motions and sealing evidence, the architect started to gain popularity, and Kay was just warming up when Cameron published his own documentary teaser. 132 video on Instagram post with the caption, "You saw the courtroom now." In the teaser, Chrissy's voice can be heard murmuring on the black screen, "If this gets out, Jim's leaving me. Don't let Cam know." Then, a sudden cut to Cameron's face revealed, "I discovered that the video had received over 5 million views in only 4 hours." "You broke my son," Jim said, ignoring Mama Jones, his mother, who that evening paced her living room during a live broadcast while battling back tears and rage. "You shattered me, Chrissy. I called you my daughter, and you were family. Now look what you did. You allowed the devil in, and he took a pink cloak that wasn't merely shade, and Chrissy fell." Sometimes the only response they deserve is silence, with no apology or comment. Just one Instagram story with a black backdrop and white words. However, since stillness only works when the world is by day 4, when the court resumed, the judge was no longer in mediation mode and was irate because new evidence had surfaced, this time from former cast member Olivia Longa. In a signed declaration, a longtime silent observer and former singer claimed to have seen Chrissy and Reggie in the hotel lobby in 2022. Holding hands and arguing over keeping things, Chrissy told her, "I'm only doing what Mona won't, Jim's too blind to see I'm not built for." That wasn't just treachery, it was a calculated move. Unfortunately, this is where things went crazy. VH1 sought to suppress the video to prohibit it from being played again, so they sent bloggers cease and desist letters, tried to get YouTube breakdowns removed, and even filed temporary bans on the documentary Cameron tease, but the internet remembers, and Cam wasn't concerned. He went out, grinned, and had a beer, saying, "Let them try the truth. Is no longer their narrative mine, and has already been released." In the meanwhile, Jim stopped going to court. Not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't cope. His team issued a brief statement saying that Mr. Jones is concerned about his mental health and has requested seclusion at this time. The victim and the perpetrator exchanged roles, with Jim becoming a rapper and Chrissy changing from fiancé to defendant. One thing is certain, this controversy destroyed a brand, not simply a relationship. Now that the comedy has been canceled, the Lebo tensions are developing and the fans want responsibility, revealed a franchise and shown what actually occurs when love is turned into a commodity rather than a commitment. One admirer remarked, "Its best love and hip-hop was never genuine, but this suffering, this silent aftermath is more real than anything the program has ever shown." They're right, because after the smoke clears and the editing stops, but the real damage is the kind that doesn't go away in the next episode, doesn't go to commercial, and keeps playing whenever someone looks for the YouTube footage of Chrissy's hotel makes us question if it was worthwhile. The Jim's career is destroyed by the weight of tragedy, and his reaction plays over and silently. Chrissy, despite their best efforts to change the entire story or distort the cover, it is already present in the movie. Everyone witnessed it, and nobody is averting their eyes. Consequently, now that the mask is removed when the cameras are not in use, and the reality is fully disclosed, the next course of action, will Jim Jones leave all of the Chrissy stays silent as she considers stardom? That moment would alleviate the suffering of sorry. Cameron, is this just a betrayal? One-time punishment? Or does he keep extra in the safe because we should? Sincerely, what if there was just one tape? There is one more thing hidden in those files. Is positive it wasn't another romantic relationship. This was a hip-hop moment. Complete. Takedown of a reality show empire collapsing under the strained details from invoices and a USB drive that caused greater damage than 1,000 fists could never do this. Therefore, here's what you must. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Who do you blame and whom do you trust? Most crucially, who will come next? Because if the saga has taught us anything, it's this. Is that when the truth comes out, nobody is secure. When it starts to leak, be careful to push that like button. You were intrigued by this. Sign up to ensure you don't miss the next boom. Trust me, it's about to switch on. Warnings due to the real drama no longer occurs on television.